Hello again, welcome to a slightly shorter episode, I think, of Shed Talk, my weekly magazine video series, looking at the keeping, breeding and showing of cage birds. The reason it's going to be slightly shorter is I've got a bit of a hectic week this week and I don't have a lot of time to actually do much recording. So I'm doing a little bit of work, mostly during most of the days, and then I've got the show information coming in, and cage labels to get back and liaising with judges and all that sort of stuff. So it's making it a little bit tight on time, and along with all that I still need to keep on top of most of the stuff that's going on in the bird room. So hence the reason why it's going to be a slightly shorter video or shorter episode this particular week. What I thought I'd do is, as the title suggests, it's been a little bit of a setback, I suppose is the best way to call it, in the shed, and I think it's mainly down to firework nights, but I'm yet to be certain of that. So what I thought I'd do is I'd start off with the good news, then move on to the setback, bad news, and then finish with the good news. So in terms of the first bit of good news is the actual fireworks over the last weekend did no real problems for the birds in the outside flight. And you might remember I said that the fireworks were likely to affect those more than the ones in here, just because of the way the setup is. But actually the precautions I took in terms of leaving the lights on slightly longer, having the radio on slightly longer, meant that I think they got through it without too much stress, or it certainly looks that way at the moment. As I speak, I've probably got a couple of more nights where there may well be a few more fireworks, but nothing too disastrous. So actually, in terms of the main fireworks, or the outside shed goes, there wasn't too much of a problem. But in here is where the setback is, and I'll talk you through that now. Well, as I said, this is where the main problems have occurred, and we had two things really that happened that I can only assume was down to fireworks. Now, in the immediate area of where I am at the moment, we had two fairly large firework displays, one just up the road and one a little bit further away, but both of them was very loud, and there were lots of flashes, lots of bangs, and both of them went on for a reasonable amount of time. And two things happened. The first thing was in cage number 6. You may remember that the hen in there was actually sat on, I think it was 7 eggs, of which most of them were clear. I say, and I think that's a fortunate thing for what happened. So most of those were clear, and I came in after the main firework display period and found that the hen was off the nest and actually out in the main cage. I checked the nest boxes, all the eggs were cold, and actually they felt very, very cold, and I left them for while I was doing all the cleaning and that and putting it in, but the hen didn't go back into the nest box at all for the whole sort of 2 or 3 hours I was up here cleaning away. So there was nowhere else where I could put them really, so I've had to throw those eggs. I mean, fortunately, like I say, most of those were clear, or at least I know that the majority of them were clear, and we weren't sure about the last couple, but my expectation is that they were clear as well. So I now need to think what I'm going to do about this cockbird and this hen in cage number 5, partly because the hen's quite an oldish hen, and last year, you may remember me saying, last year she only produced, I think in 3 rounds there were 3 chicks, and whilst they 2 chicks I think, and whilst they were both reasonably good birds, one of them was a CC winner, I'm beginning to think whether she's actually got a little bit too old and isn't going to produce any more for me, and I really want to get something off this cockbird. So I think I might swap this hen out for another hen, but we'll talk more about that in the next episode. So that was the first problem. The second setback happened in cage number 4. So I came in again the same morning, so it was a bit of a disastrous morning. Checked the nest box in there, and the youngest chick, which was actually not that tiny, you know, it was probably, I think it was about 4 days old by this stage, but the youngest chick in there had been squashed by the parent. And again, I think what has happened here is the reverse to what happened in cage 6. I think in this cage, with the noise that was going on, the hen sat really tight, and I think she ended up sitting so tight that she squashed the smallest of the chicks. The other ones in there had grown a bit bigger, and I think they were able to, you know, fend for themselves, get themselves out of the way of the hen. The youngest one, unfortunately, hadn't. So that was the problem in cage number, just double checking, number 5, sorry, it was cage 5, not cage 4. But we did have a problem with cage 4 actually, and it was a little bit similar to cage number 6. You may remember that I'd moved a couple of eggs into there, and again, the noise, the hen had come off out of the nest box again, and the chick had hatched overnight, or either early hours of the morning or overnight. And when I came in, it was cold. I tried to warm it up in my hands to see if I could get it to survive, but it was a very, you know, it only literally just hatched, and it didn't revive at all. So I've lost that chick. So that was one of the ones we've moved from cage number 1. So that was the downside, I suppose, to firework night. However, it isn't all doom and gloom in the breeding shed. So the rest of the chicks that we were talking about in cage 4 and in cage 1 and in cage 5 have actually grown quite well, and you can see some of them here. There's cage 1 here, and you can see that we've got, you know, the first one, the oldest one, is definitely a dominant pied. The other two, not sure what they are just yet, but they're not dominant pied. So we've got a dominant pied off. This looks very, you know, I like the yellow feather in it, and I think yellow light green dominant pied, or yellow green dominant pied seems to me always to look much nicer than the blue dominant pied. But anyway, so so those are growing on really well. In cage number 5, that one where we had so that in that cage there again, we've got the 3 oldest chicks are growing really well. I've now rung all of the chicks that are in cage 1 and in cage 5, so they're now all fully rung, which is, you know, the next thing is to try and get them to wean. So that's the good news in that cage. And the really good news from my point of view is in cage number 2, where you remember we were starting to see those eggs hatch. I think in the last episode one of them had hatched, or if not, we were waiting for one of them to hatch. Well, I'm now pleased to say that 3 of those have hatched, and you can see 2 of them here, I hope, but since I filmed this, the 3rd chick has hatched. So far, the oldest chick is certainly a red eye, and the other 2 chicks look to me to be normal, so they're either going to be cinnamon, you know, the plum coloured eyes, or dark eyed birds. But we've definitely got one in there, and I know that is a hen, and we'll talk a little bit very briefly now. I will try to explain that in as easily terms as I can now. Okay, what I'd like to do is spend a little bit of time talking about the pair in cage 2, because they have now hatched 2 chicks, and I said in the last episode I'd talk a little bit about the genetics behind this pair. Remember, this pair is, the cockbird is a Lutino cockbird, and the hen is an opaline cinnamon light green. And in the last episode I said that I will get any Lutinos or any Inos will be hens, or have got to be hens, and that any normal or cinnamons will have to be cockbirds. And I was going to explain a little bit about why that's the case. Now, like I said, I have done a full video on this, so if you want more information on it than this very brief explanation, then go across and have a look at the video. I did 2 videos on sex-linked varieties. So you'll almost certainly know that each bird contains, 2 genes, 2 of the same genes, so a pair of genes for on each bird. So and that one they inherit from the father and one they inherit from the mother, and that makes up the new bird. Now the INO or ENO, I'll call it the INO gene, because that's the gene that produces both the albino and the lutino. So that gene is held on the sex chromosome. So each bird, well, there's a particular chromosome, set of chromosomes, that dictates whether the bird's going to be a cockbird or a hen. Now, unlike in mammals where, like I will have an X and a Y chromosome, and my wife will have 2 Y chromosomes, in birds it's slightly the opposite way around, and I'm going to call them X and Y. I know they're not, it's got a bigger explanation, like I say, go and have a look at that. But so for point, just for ease, I'll call them X and Y chromosomes. But with budgerigars, the cockbird has 2 X chromosomes and the hen has an X and a Y chromosome. Now the Y chromosome is much smaller than the X chromosome, and as far as we're aware contains no genes that affect the colour and variety. So all of the colour variety genes are held on the Y chromosome. So what does that mean? Well, it means that the hen can only contain one set of genes that affect the variety. So she only has one gene that can be either INO or normal, so the wild type. Whereas the cockbird can contain 2, so he can contain either 2 INO genes, an INO gene and a wild type gene, or 2 wild type genes. So the other thing we know about all of the varieties that are currently held on the sex chromosome is they're all recessive. What does recessive mean? It means that you need 2 of them to make up the for it to be visibly show. So for the cockbird to be a lutino, he must contain 2 of the mutated INO genes. He can't contain 1, he must contain 2 of them. Otherwise, he would look like a normal bird, even though he's got 1 of the genes might be INO. The hen, of course, can only contain 1 of them. So she'll either contain the gene and therefore look like a lutino or an INO, or she won't and she'll look normal. So the inheritance then, the cockbird, remember, he can pass on 1 of his genes. We know that he's an INO, so they both must be INO genes. So any gene he passes on must be INO. The hen, she's not INO, so she must only contain the wild gene. So any of the X chromosome genes that she passes on must be normal. So to make up a new bird, if it contains an X and an X, the X that she inherits from the hen must be normal, and so any new cockbird will be a normal bird because it won't contain 2 of the INO genes, but it will split for INO because it will have inherited 1 from the cockbird. What about the hen? Well, if a hen contains 1 X chromosome and 1 Y chromosome, it can only inherit the Y chromosome from the hen, so it must contain the X chromosome from the cockbird, so it will contain an INO and a Y chromosome that doesn't contain it, and therefore it will look like an INO. It will be the INO mutation. So I hope that explains it. So from this pairing, we're only going to get cockbirds that are normal split Ino. They might be cinnamon, of course, if they're caught with split cinnamon, a bit complicated, or they will be, or if they're a hen, they must be Ino. Now in the nest I have one Ino so far, or one red eye, and one bird that is normal. So I know that the oldest bird, the bigger bird, must be a hen. Hope that explains that a little bit. Like I say, there's much more information over on my the genetics part of this, and of course over on the Facebook page there's a PDF, a free downloadable PDF that is a beginner's guide to genetics in budgerigar that explains dominant, recessive and all the stuff that I've spoken about here. So there we go, very brief explanation. It's not that complicated in all honesty once you get your head behind what it can and can't inherit. So the good news is we've actually got a hen in this nest box currently who is an Ino, and we've got another bird in there that must be a cockbird split for Ino. There we go, so that's nest box number 2 dealt with. Well, that is just about all I've got time for in this episode. Like I say, I do apologise that it's a slightly shorter episode than usual. Hopefully the next episode will be longer, and we should have some clips from the Oxford 1910 show as well. And I also would like to see if I can get out in the next episode out to the outside flight, and we can perhaps talk a little bit about the plans for the canaries based on what I might be able to, may or may not be able to pick up at the Oxford 1910. So, but that's for the next episode. If you enjoy these videos, then or this series, don't forget to hit the like button. Do of course, please do comment across on the comment section of the video. And if you haven't yet subscribed, then please do subscribe to the channel. All the subscriptions help the channel to grow and help to promote the hobby a little bit more widely. But until the next episode, as always, please stay safe and enjoy your birds.